What's up, fight fans? Welcome to the UFC on ESPN 1 post-fight show brought to you by SB Nation MMA, which includes websites like Bloody Elbow and MMAmania.com. I'm your host, as always, Flying Brian J, and with me, as usual, is the guys from the 6th round post-fight show, the Eddie Mercado and the Zane Simon. The fight card was pretty damn awesome, guys. The first one on Big ESPN, or just regular ESPN for the UFC, and the main event ended in short order, just like the UFC's first trip to Big Fox. Zane and I were talking quite a bit off air, so I want to hear from Eddie first. What do you think of the result of the main event?
The result of the main event was ridiculous. Francis Ngannou knocking out Cain Velasquez, but I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I had Ngannou going in. I just didn't trust Cain. The power, just the sheer power of Ngannou alone had me picking him. Like I didn't trust the durability of Cain. And to make matters worse, it looked like Cain blew his knee out.
Yeah.
So it's like that's could be the end of Cain, but he seemed super optimistic in his post-fight interview. Like he didn't seem. I think that's what Eugene Robinson calls lost battalion.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that might
Misty as fuck. In the post-fight, he said that he's ready to get back in there as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Dude.
But I mean, the thing is that we already know what as soon as possible is for a Cain Velasquez injury recovery timetable, and it's like 2 years
minimum.
I hope he's getting paid. I hope he made
all the money,
Conor McGregor money, like 2-3 million base salary money. I know he didn't make pay-per-view points or anything. It wasn't a pay-per-view, but I hope he made like millions of dollars. I know he didn't, but just let me hope, let me dream, because anytime Cain Velasquez gets injured, I'm just like, well, it's gonna be like 2 or 3 years, and at this point, it's just like, what's the point? He did not, like, the guy who stepped out there against Francis Ngannou just looked old. Like, Cain Velasquez looked old. He
looked like a Bellator heavyweight.
He absolutely did look like a Bellator heavyweight.
He looked like a guy he looked like a guy who'd spent 3.5 years sitting on the sidelines and who'd been treating his body very carefully, trying to manage everything just perfectly to make sure that he stays held together by spit and string long enough to set foot in the cage again. He didn't look like a dude who's out there pushing it 200% all the time like he used to be, and like the reason that his knees are fucked now. And the thing too is that though, like, pro athletes, they're all doing, everybody was like, oh my God, Cain Velasquez, he's out there pushing himself even harder than all the other pro athletes. Well, maybe that's not a fucking good idea, but all your best pro athletes are all the dudes who are pushing themselves. Everybody's pushing themselves hard. There's nobody out there who's like, I'm one of the best fighters in the world, and I just don't work that hard. Even BJ Penn, you go watch those early BJ Penn fights when he crashed the UFC and like was immediately right in title competition. BJ Penn is fucking cut. Dude was like muscles on muscles on muscles. Everybody's working hard when they're at the top, and this dude, Cain Velasquez, now does not look like a guy who can go out and put in the kind of time to be an elite heavyweight.
And he even looked like that coming into the fight. I mean, we knew that long before this fight even happened. Sorry, Eddie. What were we saying, Eddie?
Nothing.
Okay. So
it's better left unsaid.
Eddie, right. Before I brought you guys in, before I brought you in, Zane and I were talking about betting and how we're not big gamblers, but so we knew that coming into this fight, Cain looked old and rickety. I know that you like gambling and you're a pretty good tout, Eddie. What did you think of the -200 line on Cain Velasquez?
I think a lot of that speaks to the dumb money, just people who recognize the name. This card's on ESPN. It's like, Ngannou is still relatively unknown as far as, I don't want to say the mainstream, but like the streams that are kind of close to the main.
Like, I was talking to a friend of mine who used to be a huge MMA fan, and I was talking to him about, like, oh yeah, no, Cain Velasquez is fighting Francis Ngannou, and he was like, oh, is that the dude who's like talking about his boo-boo and his poo-poo? And I was like, no, that's Derek Lewis. Like, that's like, Derek Lewis has cracked the mainstream being wild. Anybody else, it takes a lot more than you think for fans, like even a casual fan who's like dipping in and out and catching a few things, to come on anybody's radar there. I've talked to way too many people who are like, oh, I used to watch a ton of the UFC and now I catch a few fights here and there, and then they're like 5 years out of date on anybody that's fighting.
Yeah. And then like BJ Penn actually fights, and it's just like, what the fuck? They become right again, because they're always like, hey, didn't BJ Penn just fight? And you're like, no. And then he actually does, and it's like, yeah, he just fought again.
Yeah.
What do you think is next for Francis the Predator Ngannou? And like, I would say give him a title shot against Daniel Cormier, but Cormier's life is very convoluted right now with the Brock, with the John, with the Stipe. What do you say we do with Ngannou in the meantime, Zane?
I think Ngannou is probably more likely to get a title shot at Stipe Daniel Cormier than Stipe is. I think there's probably a good chance that he just cuts in line, because Cormier gets tired of waiting for Brock and doesn't really seem like he wants the Stipe fight again, even if it may just be sort of like a minor personal spite thing of like, I don't feel like I should have to fight you twice. And you'll feel like, and Stipe is not like Stipe is somebody that sells a bunch of pay-per-views. He's not a big popular fight to get. He's just a really tough dude. So maybe Cormier will feel like Ngannou, somebody that he can get, like, can be a little more shine, be an easier fight if he's not going to get a huge pay-per-view bump off of it. Whatever else. I wouldn't be surprised if Ngannou just gets a title shot out of this. Otherwise, if I were Ngannou, I'd be calling for a Stipe Miocic rematch.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, who else is there really? There's nobody, no one legitimate that would should even be considered, for real.
They let Curtis Blades walk right into Ngannou again, so he's got to go back to the drawing board. And Derek Lewis has, his last fight was just getting totally wrecked by Daniel Cormier.
Well, no, I got to stop you there. I do not want to see that rematch. No, please, no.
No, but you could do Lewis Stipe.
Okay,
and Ngannou Cormier, know.
But for Ngannou, this is 2 straight wins for a total of 71 seconds.
Oh, shit.
That's insane.
Yeah,
the punching power is superhuman.
He could fight Alexander Volkov tomorrow and win.
He could fight a small village tomorrow and win.
Yeah.
This dude has scary power.
He is a very, very scary individual. He could beat everybody that fought in the heavyweight division in the last Bellator card right now, fully clothed.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Only if he had one of those, like, a real sturdy cup. I think that's the key to getting that
yeah, he'd get like through 3 dudes, and then he'd fight Congo, get kicked in the groin a bunch, still win, but be like well diminished after that.
And then Roy Nelson would still complain about it.
And the new dick kick of Mitrione is something to deal with. That's a real threat.
He's been
herniated testicles.
He kicked a guy so hard in the cup he got a hemorrhoid on his butt. That's fucking crazy. Let's go to the what the fuck, or if you don't want to be cussing too much, we can go to the shining star moment of the card.
I don't want to be fucking cussing too much.
Well, you never know.
I better watch my fucking tongue in here with the fucking cussing.
It's a goddamn family show, Zane.
Am I allowed to talk about Blumpkins?
You can. No. I heard that. That was on the.
You're fired.
That was on the Bellator vivisection this week. Yes, I listened to that.
All right.
Okay, Eddie, tell me what your what the fuck moment of this card was.
I didn't really have a what the fuck moment.
It could be positive.
I'll go with the shining star moment. I got to go Vicente Luque.
Yeah.
Staying composed, digging deep in a war. Having someone in front of you that just won't go away, but just stay in the course and staying true to yourself and not getting desperate for anything and digging deep when it really mattered and coming up with a TKO with just 6 seconds remaining in the fight. I thought that was incredible, and I'm glad that didn't go to the judges. So, Shining Star Award for Vicente Luque. I'm a big fan. I've been watching him for a while. Completely underrated. He's the dark horse of the division. His record is severely deceptive, and he is a killer. Like, he nukes people. Even if there's 6 seconds left now, we know he'll still nuke you. So that's my shining star.
But to tail on to that, there's a little bit, you got to give some credit to Brian Barberena because he survived a ton of damage up until the 6 seconds.
Yeah, no, Barberena is tough as shit, and he's impossible to look good against. That's why I didn't like. It ended up being a fucking awesome fight, but I felt like the UFC kind of did Luque dirty giving him this fight because it's like you're not gonna look fucking good against Brian Barberena. You're just not. You've been nuking everybody out there. Every fight you've won, you've just destroyed people, and now they're giving you Brian Barberena. Like you're not getting anything big. You're not getting a chance to really shine. He made it. He shined out of it because of the awesomeness of the fight. But they just threw him like the dude that will knock you back to the prelims for something that nobody will remember, you know?
Yeah, and Luque's been calling for a top 15 opponent for a long time, or top 10, and he still didn't get it. And Barberena had never been finished before, so that was they kind of did do him dirty. What's your what the fuck of the card, Zane?
Well, it shouldn't be a what the fuck, but it's amazing because none of us, I think, even thought to talk about it, but probably the end of Renan Barão's UFC career on the fucking fight path, like ESPN Plus early prelims.
Yeah, and it sucks too because he came out and had that great first round, much like Eric Silva did against Amosov, and it's just like, man, once Sanders got to his corner and they told him the adjustment to make, and he did, and he listened, it was a fucking wrap for Barão. The second Sanders came forward when Barão was striking, dunzo.
Yeah, it's just like, oh man, it bums me so the fuck out because it's the same story every single fight. He comes out, he looks great. You're like, oh man, Barão looks like old Barão. He looks like champion Renan Barão. Is that what we're seeing? And then he gets hit a couple times. He starts getting walked back a little, and the confidence, you just see it leave him. And it's just like a puddle on the floor, and there's this shadow of Renan Barão there, and he just got knocked out like 20 seconds after that.
Yeah, he lets guys take his soul.
Yeah.
I think it's been gone for a while. I mean, he's got one win in the last 4 years, like 4.25 years, and it was over Felipe Nover via decision.
And that was a lot closer than it should have been.
Yep.
They pulled Nover out of the triage because he's a nurse, right? Like,
yeah.
So I'm like straight up took him out of the triage for that.
Yeah. So. It fucking hurts, man. Like I not that I was the biggest Renan Barão fan, but he was such a fun fighter to watch in his prime. You know, when he like hit Eddie Wineland with that spinning back kick, and when he knocked out Uriah Faber and submitted Michael McDonald, that war he had with Michael McDonald, that was a fucking awesome fight. Like,
yeah, around the time when he was the interim champion when Cruz was gone, I think
yes,
that was awesome. He was
super fun, and it just TJ Dillashaw broke him. You rarely see a fighter get so specifically broken by one opponent and one set of fights. But man, did Dillashaw do it. That was, it's some Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard style
damage,
damage and soul taken there.
That's real shit, man. It's unfortunate. I like Barão back in the WEC days. Like, he was fun back then.
Yeah.
Did he announce that he's retiring?
Oh, I'm sure he's not retired. I don't think he's retiring, but
he's just done in the UFC.
I can't imagine. I mean, maybe the UFC gives him another fight, but what?
I would think not. I mean, he's on the Fight Pass prelims already. He's 1-6 in his last 7 fights over the last 4 years.
Yeah,
lost 4 in a row.
What fight do they give him? Do they start putting him up with like the Chinese dudes on like a Shanghai UFC ESPN Plus card, like as the opener? It just,
Yeah, he's done. Maybe he can go to Ryzen or something and be post USADA. But even then, I mean, look at Eric Silva's not looking good.
He can go to Bellator because they have a pretty weak bantamweight division. They kind of need some talent, and he's still good. I mean, that was a good first round out of him. So there's some interesting matchups.
He's good against dudes who can't possibly hurt him.
Bellator is
there we go.
right around the corner.
And
But what's his contract like? Is he even in a situation where
I don't know. Like I just have to assume that the UFC's done booking him. Maybe they're not, but I mean, how many more fights could he have on his contract? When was the last time that the UFC was looking at Renan Barão and we're like, yeah, we need to renew this shit?
And speaking of him just stepping away from fighting, I don't think he's made enough money in his UFC career to just retire. And then in his last 2 fights, he's lost 20% of both of those paychecks because he missed weight.
Yeah, well, you can always remember the video, the classic when he was champion video of Renan Barão washing his fucking clothes in a bucket in the sink. And you see him being like, look how humbly he lives. Isn't that awesome? You're like...
No, it's because you pay him shit.
Yeah. Fucking no. No, it's not awesome, actually.
Oh,
well, yeah, what the fuck to the entire career of late of Renan Barão. But I'll let you do the sign-off, Zane. You can get out of here.
Yeah. All right.
Not that I'm pushing you away, but...
A typically down note, and I think on that note, we're going to step out of here, jump over, do the other show. You can find me on Twitter at TheseAnytime. You can find Eddie on Twitter at TheEddieMercado. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com and at Bloody Elbow Presents on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, every other thing under the sun. And give us a like there. Find us in the 6th round. That'll be dropping tomorrow, and we will see y'all soon. Thanks for having us on, Brian.
No problem. Thanks,
Adios.
Eddie.
And Brian, you're looking healthy as hell nowadays. What do you? I see you're getting a little bigger there. You bulking up a little bit.
I weigh the exact same. I've just been posting about lifting weights. I see. You see. Thanks, though, man.
I've been stalking you.
No, that's all right. Yeah. I follow you too. You're a handsome man. What does Vic call you? Black Fabio?
Black Fab. Yeah. It was a girlfriend named me Black Fabio, and I kind of leaked it out, and then Vic ran with it. Now it's my Twitter name. So.
And if you're not comfortable with that, Ricky Ketchup is right there.
Ricky Ketchup is Black Fabio's evil twin.
Yeah.
my alter ego has an alias.
And that's my what the fuck of the card.
All right.
Brian, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. See you later. All right, fight fans, if this is your first time being here, I'm going to take us through the rest of the fight card. We can talk about your comments over there. You can be my co-host as we recap the rest of UFC on ESPN 1, which ended in Francis the Predator Ngannou finishing the former heavyweight champion of the world, Cain Velasquez, in just 26 seconds. KO from a punch in the very first round. While I was talking to Zane and Eddie, I saw that a lot of you commenters were mentioning if it was just Cain's knee going out or if it was due to a punch that actually ended the fight. So I've watched it over a few times. Cain ran forward, of course, looking for that takedown. As Francis came forward on him, actually, Francis threw a 1-2 that Dominic Cruz said connected. It did not connect. The one went over his head, and the 2, he kind of just slapped Cain on the back. But then as Cain tried to press forward for that takedown, he got in tight up against the fence, and Francis hit him with an uppercut in tight that broke his equilibrium, fucked his head up a little bit, and then when Cain stepped funny, his knee went out. It was kind of like bang bang, like real simultaneous. But I do think that it was the right uppercut up against the fence when Ngannou had his back to the fence that was the real finisher. I mean, it was, as Q Annan says, it was the knees. It is Cain Velasquez being old, rickety, his knees. Maybe you've seen the video or the GIF that shows Cain Velasquez a long time ago versus Cain progression, doing the squat down that he does against the cage when he enters the octagon for the fight. And he just squats down less and less each time. And he moves less when in the octagon preparing to actually engage in the fight. And Zane was talking about it's been 3.5 years since Cain had hit a meaningful takedown in a fight, and he lost that fight. It was when he lost the belt to Fabricio Verdum a long, long time ago, facing a young, strong, heavy punching heavyweight. I thought it was funny that the odds had -200 for Cain Velasquez. I bet on Francis Ngannou, and yay me. You can follow my bets at betmma.tips/FlyingBrianJ. I don't know why I just said that on the air because I'm not really good at betting, but you can go there and you can see my past bets. I'm negative units in my lifetime of betting, but it's still a lot of fun. Let's talk about the co-main event of the evening. Paul the Irish Dragon Felder defeated James Vick 29-28, 30-27 times 2. Actually, Paul Felder did a really good job controlling the range, which is funny because he was facing a guy that's way taller, way longer than him. He did a better job out in space. He also did a better job up and tight with the clinch work. And the story of the fight for me was similar to what Justin Gaethje does to everybody. The outside low kick. Paul Felder hit James Vick with a lot of outside low kicks, which, as QAnon says in the comment section, Vick has no head movement. Because Vick's so long, early on, he can kind of just lean away from punches. But as you get kicked in the lead leg and it dwindles your mobility, not only can you move your head less, you can just get away from any strike a lot less effectively. And Paul Felder did a really good job chopping that leg down, finding the distance, and then Paul actually hit a whole bunch of spinning back elbows and spinning back fists on James Vick, and I thought it was pretty clear that Paul Felder won 30-27. I know one judge gave it 29-28, but the second round, which was, I think, the round where that one judge would have given it to Vick, it was tied exactly 20-20 for strikes landed, but Paul at one point hurt Vick with the outside low kick. You know, Vick kind of stumbled and was hobbling on his leg for a brief moment, and then the spinning back elbow landed for Paul. I thought Paul just controlled the whole thing. A what the fuck of the card could be, in the post-fight interview, Paul Felder said that somebody at the fighter meeting said that Paul wasn't intelligent enough to win a decision. The only way he could win a fight is via knockout. I want to say, what the fuck, or who the fuck said that to Paul Felder? I really want to know. I hope he tweets it out. But Paul now redeemed himself from the last loss on his record, which was to Platinum Mike Perry back in July, where I think he broke his arm, and he's been recovering from that. And he had an emotional post-fight interview because he came back from the broken arm, and also he lost his dad sometime around the last fight. So, yeah, a lot of you guys are talking about Rob Amon's always here with the chopping block, going to cut some people that need to be released from the UFC's roster. Jacob Suarez, I don't understand how Vic's problems have only just caught up with him. Terrible defense. They haven't just caught up with him. They caught up with him back in 2006 at UFC 199 when Beneil Dariush knocked him out in the first round. He's just been able... he's fought... Paul Felder and Justin Gaethje are a high level of competition. Francisco Trinaldo's kind of a gatekeeper of like the top 25. He got the decision there. Joe Duffy, not the highest level of competitor. Abel Trujillo was on his way out and doesn't have a big variety of punches or anything in his arsenal. He's a big overhand right kind of guy. So I think not only is it maybe people have film on Vic now. You get more film on somebody, you can study them more, and then basically he's always had the problem, but people are just able to exploit it the further along in his career he goes. But I also believe that the problem has come to the top, has boiled to the surface because he's taken a step up in competition. Justin Gaethje, the former WSOF champion, very high level competitor, undefeated when he made his octagon debut. And then Paul Felder, I talked to Paul after James Vick's last fight, which was a loss to Justin Gaethje in Lincoln, Nebraska. I had some beers with Paul, and I was talking, and I was really, really drunk, so I might be misremembering. But I was talking to Paul about, like James Vick and about like all of the fights that Paul calls. And I think that Paul is a very, very intelligent fighter. Based on my conversation with him, you can tell that he's good with his analysis, and he's got a cerebral approach to the fights. I think he's a very intelligent individual. You can tell that by he's the commentator for a lot of the UFC events. You can tell that he thinks things through a lot. And then he has a really good coach and team with Duke Rufus out there, with guys like Sergio, Anthony Pettis, and stuff like that. So I think Paul's got a very intelligent approach to the game, and exploiting the weaknesses of James Vick boiled to the surface because Paul is a really, really intelligent guy. Who did this guy do body shots off? I don't know. If that guy comments too much more, I'll have to block him. What else are you guys saying? We can move down. Rob Amon says Paul Felder versus Barboza would be intriguing. I think Paul's already lost to Barboza once, and it was back in July of 2015. Also in the post-fight interview, Paul Felder called for the winner of Gaethje versus Barboza, which is happening soonish. Let's see. I think it's happening soon. Yeah, UFC on ESPN2, March 30th, 2019. Paul said that because of the war that he had tonight, he's not going to be able to go and fight at UFC Philadelphia, which is, let's see, UFC Philadelphia is happening March 30th. Oh, that's the card where Barboza versus Gaethje is on. So he wants the winner of that fight. And I think that's absolutely fine. Let's go down, keep moving down the card to Cynthia Calvillo versus Cast Iron Courtney Casey. First of all, I don't like how Bruce Buffer always says Courtney Cast Iron Casey, just the alliteration. It doesn't roll off the tongue as well as Cast Iron Courtney Casey does. So that's something. It wasn't the best fight. I thought that Courtney Casey did a good job defending the takedowns, but overall she should have let her hands go a little more. She did a great job with the takedown defense. Now she just needs to elevate her level of aggression, and she should have just let her hands go a little more. Cynthia Calvillo was doing a good job, like jabbing the leg, jabbing the body, making the mind of Courtney Casey be overloaded with information of what's coming from her, from Calvillo, because Calvillo could have been looking for a takedown attempt, could have been looking to jab the body. You don't know what's really going on there. Calvillo hit a bunch of hard right hands on Courtney Casey. It was a pretty intriguing fight, actually, but I saw some people that were in the stands said they were bored and they were entertaining themselves by doing the wave and stuff during that fight. It honestly wasn't that great. Rob Amos says Courtney Casey is a gatekeeper. Yeah. In the post-fight interview, Cynthia Calvillo called out Tatiana Suarez. And I tweeted, man, if you make that fight, I'm betting my fucking life savings on Tatiana Suarez. I mean, we've seen Calvillo fight somebody who's a good wrestler, Carla Esparza. And Esparza beat her via decision and pretty handily. Esparza just got finished by Tatiana Suarez. I know MMA math, yada yada, but I think that Calvillo doesn't have that great of takedown defense, doesn't have that great of grappling defense. She's offensive with that. And I think Tatiana Suarez is clearly the best wrestler in that division. I think she would just pound the shit out of Cynthia Calvillo. So I don't think we should make that fight. And also, Tatiana tweeted she doesn't want the fight because she wants a top 5 ranked opponent because she wants to move herself toward a title shot. Kron Gracie made a successful UFC debut in the 4,999th fight in UFC history. He's the first Gracie to win a fight in the octagon since 94 or whatever when Royce did the damn thing. He got a rear naked choke over Alex Caceres at 2 minutes and 6 seconds in the very first round. Man, Kron Gracie's got to be the most relaxed son of a bitch in the world. Even in the post-fight interview, when John Anik's like trying to get him to say things, he's like, yeah, man, that's what I do. Yep. John Anik's like, hey, dude, that was a really great transition. You got him up against the fence. You got one leg around his leg. You fucking swiftly took the back, and after that, it was just elementary. And he's like, yeah, man, rear naked chokes, bud. Okay. And then, like, when John's like, here, you get the mic for one last thing you can say before we're going to cut it off. And he's like, tell the rest of the people in the division you better watch your fucking necks. Or I'm coming for those fucking necks. And he's like, oops, shouldn't have cussed. Weird character, the Kron Gracie. Before we go any further, I want to ask you guys, if you watch the fight card, what your post-fight bonuses would be. Who would you give an extra $50,000 for a performance bonus? You can give 3 of those. And you can give 1 fight of the night. The reason why we give 3 performance bonuses is because we're not actually giving anybody any money. It's just for a post-fight show so we can chat about it. While you guys think about who you would give your post-fight bonuses to, I'm going to check the Twitter machine for what the real bonuses were. As I'm moving over there, Marcus McGahee says, did Kron start his post-fight interview with "Whoomp, there it is"? He absolutely did. Who sings "Whoomp, there it is"? Not the Quad City DJs. Fucking hilarious. Torrin Brown says Kron Gracie versus Brian Ortega. Jacob Suarez says Well, I'm gonna save that. Who would you guys give your 3 post-fight bonuses to? Excuse me, I should have muted my mic. As we check that, I'm going to go over and check the Twitter machine for what the real bonuses were. As I'm doing that, I'm going to stall for time and say that you can listen to this show audio only without my ugly face or the other guys' beautiful faces by searching for Flying Brian Show wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can search for MMA Nation or Bloody Elbow Presents. And there's a link to the Bloody Elbow Presents YouTube down below this video. But if you don't want to find it there, just search for Flying Brian Show wherever you get your podcast. And I think it should be everywhere. Let's see what the real ones are. It might take a bit. I don't think we have them yet. Okay. Well, we don't have the real ones yet, it doesn't seem. So let's give out ours. Suego Lacuzia says, why doesn't the post-fight press conference start? I don't know. I don't think it's started yet. Gosh, I hope there's going to be one. Because when I'm done with this show, I move over there and watch the post-fight press conference as well. So... Okay, let's look at these bonuses. Toddle says performance bonuses going to Kron Gracie and Luke Sanders because Sanders got that first round or second round knockout over Henan Barral. Performances by Dylan Glenn says go to Kron Gracie, Vicente Luque, and Luke Sanders. Cyrus Blazing says KO of the night, throwing it back there. Knockout of the night goes to Francis Ngannou, sub to Kron Gracie. Liver shot, raw moose liver says bonus night goes to Irish dude from Philly. Rob Amon says fight of the night to Felder versus Vic. Controversial, you got me with that. Knockout of the night to Francis Ngannou. Jacob Suarez says performances go to Kron Gracie, Brian Bam Bam Barberena, and Paul the Irish Dragon Felder. And, okay, so you probably have noticed that I've been putting off saying what the fight of the night was. And I wanted to use that to transition into talking about a welterweight fight. It was the second one on the main card. It ended in a TKO with 6 seconds to go on the night. Vicente Luque versus Brian Bam Bam Barberena. Holy shit. I know everybody in the comment section has said that was the fight of the night, except for Rob was saying the Irish Dragon versus Vic. But I think truly, without a doubt, no question in my mind, the fight of the night, the fight so far this year, any fucking promotion, was Vicente Luque versus Brian Bam Bam Barberena. That was one of, if not the most epic fights I've ever watched in my life. I mean, it was right up there with how intense Ruthless Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald 2 was. It's right up there with Dong Yum Kim, the Maestro, versus Marco Polo Reyes, which ended up winning, I think, fucking fight of the year. Luque versus Barberena was insane, my dudes. In the very first round, Luque's hitting Barberena with everything in his arsenal. Big ol' right hand after big ol' right hand, knees to the face, walking him back. And what does Barberena do? Puts his hands down, just kind of like just toddles forward after him. Speaking of toddle, Brian Barberena walks out to Baby Shark. Do Baby Shark. I don't know yet. I don't have kids yet. I'm gonna have a kid probably within the next week though. So yes. But so after Luque would just smash Barberena with big fucking punches, Barberena just comes toddling forward, hands down, face wide out in the open, that big beard and the mohawk just coming right at him. And then just peppering Luque with shots, just peppering him, pop, 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 pop. Luque would put up the, like, it's not the peekaboo guard, but he would put up the guard, and Barberena would be, like, hitting his arms, hitting around him, and just, like, tapping him. And then, like, maybe 2 minutes to go in the first round, Brian Barberena drops Vicente Luque, and it's like, oh, shit, fuck, what? And Luque, like, gets his senses back with him immediately, takes the back of Bryan Barberena, looks like he has a goddamn rear naked choke locked in. It's over his chin a little bit and not under his, under the chin on the throat. And he also only has one hook in, but he looked like he was squeezing it tight as fuck. And it's like, it's just inevitable. Barberena's gonna either tap out or go to sleep. No, Barberena like was rolling with it right, got his head out from underneath of it, and then just got free. Was gonna go to get back to his feet. He got on all fours, and Luque snatched in the Darce choke, and we're like, oh shit, that's definitely over. Nope, Barberena gets out of that too, and the first round ends with Barberena raining down some vicious ground and pound with a lot of ferocity, with a lot of velocity, and a lot of punches, period, on Luque to end the first round. It's like, oh my god. Wow, what the fuck was that? That's just the first round, for fuck's sakes. Second round, more of the same, except for toward the end of the round, it looked like Luque had Barberena on the ropes. And it looked like Luque could be going for the finish. But then, the bell sounds and it's the end of the second round, and Barberena still has his wits about him, walks to his corner, looking fine and dandy. Luque, because of the peppering shots, the massive volume that Barberena was laying down on Vicente Luque, he was all bloody as fuck. And he looked like he started to lose his soul a little bit. He didn't have like that pep in his step, that pizzazz in his life anymore because of the damage that he was doing. Barberena was doing to him. I need to find the stats. And then the third round, more of the same, except for the same flash of violence, ferocity that Luque had at the end of the second round, which almost looked like he was going to finish Barberena. He turned that shit up to fucking 13 and finished Barberena with just 6 seconds to go. And my butthole was so tight. Tight butthole, if you're a fan of The Workaholics. Heart rate through the roof, about had an anxiety attack just watching it. I got out of breath, super tired. I was sitting in this very chair, not competing in any form of mixed martial arts, not competing in anything that required physical exertion, and I was tired from being on the edge of my seat of that amazing, amazing fight. I think that without a doubt, Vicente Luque versus Bryan Barberena was fight of the night. Jacob Suarez says, Bam Bam's chin, can't feel a thing, but holy shit, how that fight went back and forth gave me high-ass blood pressure. Absolutely agree. I tweeted it, and I think probably everybody who had Twitter said this as well, that Barberena's chin is that of a prime chin of Roy Big Country Nelson. And the thing of it is, I even said in my top 3 fights to watch this week video that Barberena absorbs more than half of the strikes thrown his way, and he's never been finished. I think he probably absorbed, he actually absorbed 68% of the strikes thrown his way tonight, and he almost did not get finished. Total strikes landed in this fight, Luque versus Barberena, 164 for Vicente Luque, 195 for Barberena. Significant strikes, 163 for Luque, 169 for Barberena. I think the strikes per round are even more impressive. Round number 3, Vicente Luque landed 71 and Bryan Barberena landed 73 strikes. Holy shit. And I forgot to mention, we saw the official scorecard via MMAfighting.com after this one was over when we were watching the next bout. And if it would have gone to the judges, Bryan Barberena would have probably won that fight, because up until the time when he got finished, he was winning the third round, and on 2 judges' scorecards, he was up 20-18, I think. No, 2 judges had it tied, and then 1 judge had it for Barberena 20-18. And if Barberena would have won the third round, he would have won 29-28, 29-28, 30-27. Holy shit. There was an amazing display of violence, heart, determination, grit, all of that shit. Respectfulness. After the fight was over, they hugged, they showed some respect for each other, they took a picture, and everything was great. Dylan Glenn. Pretty sure they said this was the highest number of significant strikes in a 3-round welterweight fight. Holy fucking shit. No, it was the second fight on the main card. Liver shot, raw moose liver. Wow. Do we still not have the official post-fight bonuses? This is some shit, guys. I'm going to have to stall my ass off if we're going to get these official post-fight bonuses in on this show. The fight before that, which it feels like a letdown to even, talk about the next fights on the card beyond Luque versus Barberena, because, and I even felt that way while watching the fight card live. You move past Vicente Luque versus Brian Barberena, and I'm like, nothing's going to top that. Why keep going? I have this theory, or I have this approach. Like, I've only been to the casino like twice in my life, but let's say I go to the casino. Let's say I'm playing blackjack. I put $100 down, and I get ace king. Bam. $300. I just won. I just tripled my money. So I won $200. I now have $300 just in an instant. I'm like, why keep playing? It's not going to get better than that. Ace king doesn't get better than ace king. You're playing blackjack. Let's say you're on The Price is Right, and you go to that wheel that they spin before you go to the Showcase Showdown, and you fucking spin $1. Bam, $1. No reason to go again. But we can talk about the rest of these fights. Rob Amon's roster cuts. Renan Barão, cut him for sure. Alex Caceres, maybe cut him. Let's see, Alex Caceres. No, we're not cutting him. He's 2-2 in his last 4, and we're gonna keep him around. And Miles Jury, cut him, maybe. And Cain Velasquez, retire. Yeah, we don't have much time left. The overlords at SB Nation MMA want me to keep this thing to about a half an hour. That's why I've been trying to rush through this a little bit. Oh, and the UFC Phoenix post-fight press conference will be starting here shortly. But liver shot, raw moose liver. Glad I didn't block you, my dude. Ask about, what do I think about ESPN's production of the card? It's the inaugural card, right? This is the first card on ESPN, main card on ESPN for the UFC. I suppose I should touch on the production quality. And it's no different. For me. I don't notice a difference at all. We got the same commentators. We had Dominic Cruz, John Anik tonight. I would have liked for the first big show, we bring in Joe Rogan, maybe Daniel Cormier. But as Toddle says, the UFC doesn't do the production. It's all the UFC. Maybe we're talking about the presentation of the card. There are small tweaks. Like the first time we were ever on ESPN, where Donald Cerrone beat Alexander Hernandez. Before we transitioned over to the ESPN Plus card, we had Stephen A. Smith there. That was a small difference. But other than that, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. I'm sorry for all the coughing. Cyrus Blazing says, Perry vs. Barberena, what do I think? Book that shit. Absolutely love it. I might even pick Barberena to win that fight. But last thing that I think we need to really talk about on this card is Aljamain, Andre Fili versus Miles Jury. I'll just say the result, 29-28 across the board. It was basically Andre Fili pumping his jab out there and Miles Jury having no answer for it. Jury, I think the second round, hit a spinning back fist on Fili, knocked him down, and that got him to win that round. But that fight wasn't that great. But the bantamweight fight that ended the prelim card on ESPN, Aljamain the Funkmaster Sterling versus Jimmy Eltera Rivera. Coming into this fight, Rivera had never been taken down in the octagon, despite having quite a few fights for the promotion. And I said it would be, like, who won the fight would be the person who won the takedown or not takedown game. Aljamain Sterling, known as a really good grappler, background in wrestling, a very good top control and takedown game, was unable to take Rivera down, but because he was not worried about the takedown either, it freed up his striking. He had some long dynamic striking that he hurt Rivera with a couple of times, and Rivera didn't really have an answer for the distance manipulation, and it was a really, really good performance from Aljamain Sterling. A lot of the time back before this fight, he'd throw like one wide kick, and that's it. You know, like one kick here and then one kick there. Today he put some combinations together. He transitioned from like the takedown attempts to the striking really, really well. If I had to say a what the fuck of the card, like my true what the fuck of the card is the referee during Aljamain Sterling versus Jimmy Rivera. I'm sorry. I'm really dry. I apologize for all the coughing. 1 second. So, in space, Aljamain Sterling would go for a takedown attempt. And of course, the fight would end up along the fence. And Aljo would be working to get his grip right behind the leg or behind the butt of Jimmy Rivera. But as soon as like the fight hit the fence, the referee would be telling Aljamain Sterling, you gotta work from here. And it's like, what the fuck, man? He's working. He just got the fight here, which is an advantageous position. And if you can't see his hands looking to grasp behind the butt of Jimmy Rivera, you're a fucking dunce. And he did that over and over and over and over again. So my what the fuck goes to the referee during Aljamain versus Jimmy Rivera. And I think that Aljo did a really, really good job in this fight. Aljo was too tall for... This is Untitled. Aljo was too tall and long for Rivera. Aljo kept tagging him from range, and Rivera had no urgency to go forward to try landing. Settled into losing a decision. I wanted to say this earlier, and I have to bring it up now. Somebody mentioned earlier that James Vick has been found out. You know, why are the problems in James Vick's game just now boiling to the surface? And I think that Jimmy Rivera was undefeated 20 fights in a row. He lost his like UFC or MMA debut, then went on like a 20-fight win streak before getting knocked out by Marlon Moraes. And Jimmy beat John Dodson his last time out via decision. But I think that people are finding Jimmy Rivera out. God dang it. He has only one finish in his UFC career. I think like 78% of Jimmy Rivera's fights go to a decision, and he just got like this. He's got a boxing game. He doesn't have much in the way of kicks. He doesn't have much way of threatening with level changes or anything like that. He's just got this very straightforward boxing game where he hides behind his lead shoulder and he threatens with the right hand. Sure, he throws some low kicks out there every once in a while, and he'll throw a high kick. But I don't think that is something that is in his game enough. And I think people are finding Jimmy Rivera out. And with the lack of danger in Jimmy Rivera's game, I think that people are just going to be like, he's not going to knock me out. I can just come forward on him and then try to put my game to work. You know, you hear fighters a lot talk about, I'm not worried about what my opponent's doing. I'm working about getting better myself and what I'm doing. And I think when you're facing Jimmy Rivera, who lacks the finishing ability, you can kind of just go in there and worry about yourself. Rob Amon says, Sterling versus Lineker is the fight to make. I like it a lot. Dylan Glenn, Rivera has never fought with enough urgency. He's just been lucky enough to outwork his opponents in all of his wins. Paid Programming says Lineker would beat Sterling, I think, but he loves that fight. That's an interesting fight because it would be another one that I would say it depends on who wins the takedown game. I mean, TJ Dillashaw just wrecked John Lineker with the takedown game. And I think that, you know, obviously TJ Dillashaw has a more well-rounded and diverse, dangerous attack overall than Aljamain Sterling, but just that aspect of grappling could be interesting in a Lineker matchup. Otto says Lineker got rebooked with Corey Sandhagen. Yes, he did. You're right. Rivera needs to step down in competition, says Rob Amon. And Manny Alma says the crowd was bad, too much unnecessary booing. That happens a lot when you go to markets that the UFC doesn't usually go to. You know, tonight was UFC Phoenix. It's a group of people, so you're going to get a whole bunch of fans that aren't actually fight fans that go to the event because the UFC's coming to town. They're not actually following the sport as tight as you and I do, as all of you guys and I do, right? So you're going to get some of those casual fans that are going to do stuff like that. At UFC Lincoln, there was a guy in front of me that was booing a really fun fight between actually Cast Iron Courtney Casey and Angela Overkill Hill. And I had been drinking a little bit. I said to him, hey, shut the fuck up. And I just said it right to him. He was the only guy in like my whole area that was booing. And I'm just like, and being from Lincoln, Nebraska, or that area, the UFC has never came there before. And I don't want people to think that Lincoln, Nebraska is a bunch of shitty fans. Like Manny Almas says, the crowd was bad. I didn't want the fighters or anybody involved with the thing to think that the crowd in Lincoln was bad. I know that we're not talking about UFC Lincoln tonight, but that's just my theory. This is why you're not a legit journalist. Drinking on the job. No, at UFC Lincoln, I was there as a fan. I'd only been to one UFC event in my life. I took the night off and I went to UFC Lincoln as a fan. Bowser. All right, guys, we got to go. Let me see. I still don't think we have the post-fight bonuses. Nope, we don't have the post-fight bonuses. But once again, follow me on Twitter at FlyingBrianJ. You can follow the podcast version of this by searching for Flying Brian Show on all of your favorite podcast platforms. I should be there. You can follow me on Facebook by searching for Flying Brian J or at Flying Brian Show. You can also get this podcast version by searching for Bloody Elbow Presents. That's the show. Thank you all so much for being here. I think we probably got the post-fight bonuses right, especially the fight of the night. Again, I appreciate you guys. I'll see you next week, I hope, for UFC Prague post-fight show, which I think the entire fight card's happening on ESPN+. I'll see you then, guys. Namaste. Namaste. Oh, yeah, thanks for throwing me likes, guys. I need the thumbs up. I think we could probably get to 100 likes. If you're here now live, please give it a thumbs up. We can get to 100, and it would be the first time that we've ever got 100 likes on this post-fight show. That'd mean a lot to me. Sorry for dragging out the ending. Namaste and all that jazz. Deuces.